Hey, Pastor Josh here. We are reading Acts chapter 15, verses 36 through 41, and we are playing a bit of catch up today. I'm going to record 3 videos. If you're watching this live, you know I've gotten behind again, and hopefully we will stop this terrible habit that I have run into. Just a lot of things going on here at the church, but let's jump into this, though. It is not always clear. It's not always clear on the decision we need to make. It's just not clear. It's not always black and white what God would have us to do. And here is what is interesting. It boggles our minds, but it can be the case that two contradictory options could actually both be in the will of God. And we're going to see that in our passage today that we are reading, the passage that I should have recorded on September 19th, but it's not always clear it's not always clear what it is that we should do, and two contradictory paths could be very well what the Lord would have us to do. So let's look at that. This is the whole idea of applying God's Word to our life, which is a very difficult thing to do. It's a very personal thing to do, and it's a very particular thing to do. It is applying God's Word specifically to our life. I am only one individual, and I'm a unique individual. You are a unique individual. No one else will have your life. No one else will have the options, all the options that you particularly make. No one else will have the exact same life and the same decisions that you will have to make. That's why it might be right for one person to do something and wrong for someone else. So let's look at what is happening between Paul and Barnabas. They have come back home. They've went on this wonderful first missionary journey. They have shared with our home church on Antioch on what has happened. And Paul, as you can imagine, gets restless. He says, we got to go back. Verse 36, he said, after some days, Paul said to Barnabas, oh, we've been here too long. We got to get back. He says, let us return and visit the brothers in every city where we proclaim the Lord of the Lord and see how they are. That's a good example for us to follow. Let us return. Let us check on our brothers and sisters. Let us check on our pew buddies, as I like to call them, in our church. Let's check on the people that are around us, the folks in our Sunday school class, the person that just got baptized a few months ago, that new Christian. Let us check on each other. It's a good thing for us to do, is to return, double back, and check in on one another. We should always be doing that. So Paul's heart is a good heart, and Barnabas is like, yes, that's great. But Barnabas has a different take on what they should do. Let's see what happens. Verse 37, now Barnabas wanted to take with them John called Mark. Now, if you remember, John Mark went with them on that first journey. There's just a little phrases about John Mark going with them. But after they went to Cyprus, and after they went to the mainland in Pamphylia, Mark left them. He went back home. We don't know. Did he get scared? Did he get worried or whatever? But Barnabas is like, okay, we need to take John Mark back along with us. Remember, Barnabas got his nickname Barnabas, which means son of encouragement. He got that because he loves to invest in people. He loves to take somebody that seems like they won't become someone and make them someone. That's what Barnabas did with Paul. Paul was someone that killed Christians, and Barnabas put his own reputation on the line, spent time with Paul to make him who he was. Barnabas loved to take people that did not look like they could be someone and make them someone. And that's what he's doing with John Mark. In fact, tradition tells us, in my own personal opinion, I believe this too, that John Mark put together the Gospel of Mark that we have. So Barnabas wants to take Mark, and I think that's a good example for us to follow. Barnabas is saying we need to work with this man. This is somebody we need to develop, and he needs to come with us. But Paul's like, I don't know. He left us. Why are we going to bring him back? He's not going to get a second chance. So look at verse 38. But Paul thought best not to take with them one who had withdrawn from them in Pamphylia and had not gone with them to the work. So that's not a good idea for us to take him along with us. He left us once. He'll probably leave us again. Paul changes his mind about Mark later on in one of his letters. He does say that he is useful to him. But it does make sense. And I think this is an example for us to follow. Also, is that when someone has not been found faithful, can you really give them more responsibilities? How many second chances can you give? Paul is not being totally ridiculous in his position. But here's what happens between these two guys. I actually think it is the right choice for them to make their own choice, and the end result is obviously what God wanted, otherwise it wouldn't have happened. And then obviously too, it is going to be a better situation. But here's the bad thing that happens in verse 39. Verse 39, you read it there, and there arose a sharp disagreement over whether or not to take Paul or whether or not to take Mark. We can be encouraged in a weird, odd way. Christians fight. The apostles fought. We are all sinful people. So when you sin, realize you are in good company. All good Christians of all ages have had disagreements, have had even sharp disagreements one with another. Doesn't make it right, and I don't think this disagreement between Barnabas and Paul was a good thing. I think it's a bad thing. If it just said there arose a disagreement and they went their different ways, that'd be one thing. But it said there arose a sharp disagreement, the implication being that they had some words with one another. So this would be a sin we need to avoid. We need to think through the differences, the different desires and thoughts that we're having. Does that mean there's a different way forward without us fighting and arguing about it? So it was so sharp that they separated from each other. But notice how it ends, though. Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed away to Cyprus. So Barnabas continues his wonderful mission of mentoring new guys, takes them off to Cyprus, and then Paul takes Silas and begins to mentor him as well. And they depart, having been commended by the brothers to the grace of the Lord. And he went through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches. So what we actually have here now is that we have two missionary teams. Two teams. So rather than there being one team that's going to check in on the churches, there are now two teams going. And don't you think you're going to get more done out of this situation? So it's very sad that they had a sharp disagreement, but I honestly believe that both of them were moved in the right way. It ended the right way. They shouldn't have fought in the middle of it, but this is indeed what God wanted. We needed to have two missionary teams going back into the field, and now we are beginning what is known as Paul's second missionary journey. So it's not always clear what we should do, and we should do the hard work of applying God's word particularly to our life. Pray that's been a blessing to you. I'll see you all in the next video.